Did you ever wonder? I do. Did you ever wonder why the sun always rises, but the stars never fall? Why dry land is never satisfied by water? And why fire never says enough?
So today on Bible Wonders, we get to wonder about the third mother of the matriarchs. Just an amazing story, no doubt, in so many different ways. And that third mother is Leah. And as the Bible teaches, she had tender eyes. And there's much to understand there, but let's just go back to what we talked about yesterday, that there was a whole lot of shenanigans in Jacob's family, based on what had happened with Rebekah and the deception of Isaac. You know, all this would have many consequences, and for so many different reasons, this family is all very much tied together, since here we have Rebekah's essentially nieces in Leah and Rachel that we're going to hear all about, you know, in the upcoming episode of Rachel. But today we're talking about Leah, and as it described Leah when in Genesis, 27, 28, 29, it's all quite the story, that Leah was the older of the two daughters. That's important to understand. And that is also that she had weak eyes. And so what the Jews teach along these lines, to me, is helpful. I don't know if it's helpful to you, but it's extremely helpful to me to understand that they teach that Rachel and Leah were not only twins like Jacob and Esau, but they were identical twins, which gives you a little understanding of how Jacob might have had that wedding night experience where he didn't know who he was with. But they were identical twins, and Leah being the older when they were born, Laban understood that being first cousins of another set of twins, being, obviously Esau and Jacob, that this would be sort of a match made in heaven. And so as the twins, Leah and Rachel, began to get older, and the stories were coming from Canaan about how Esau was, Rachel began to weep and weep and weep because she did not want to marry this man who'd already married all these foreign women and had this horrible reputation. And so she cried. And because of all this crying, her eyes got very, very tender. And with that tenderness meant that, because the other thing we know is that Rachel was the one that was tending the sheep. Well, why? Well, the Jews teach that, because Rachel's eyes were so tender from all this crying, it really hurt her to go out in the sun. And in that area of the country, the sun is very bright. So she stayed in her tent in order to protect her eyes while her sister went out in the sun to tend the sheep, which may have something to do with why Rachel was considered more beautiful, because she was tanned and clearly a little more athletic, because she was out there getting exercise while Leah was in her tent crying. Yet they were identical twins, and would have similar voices, all these things that might, have something to do with that night. But like we talked about in yesterday's episode, it's really good for my heart to see all the dysfunction in this family. This is Jesus' family here, okay? This is our family. I love in the 119th Psalm, in the Nun section, we say, or if we're praying that, which I love to do every day, that we've taken your heritage we've taken your testimonies forever as our inheritance, for they are the rejoicing of our hearts. Well, if we're taking, this testimony as our inheritance, then clearly Leah is our mother too. And she really is, because she's one of Jesus's mothers. And since we're married to Christ, we're kind of in-lawed into the deal. So, this is our story, and it's really nice to know that, we come from these people that made a lot of mistakes, yet God still continued to be faithful to them and lead them through into some incredible things. But in Leah's case, she was suffering because she thought she was going to be married to to Esau, if that story is accurate. What we do know is her eyes were weak, and what we do know is that Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, and that, that's part of the story, because Laban had told him, that if he worked 7 years, he would give him his daughter Rachel. Well, the night of their wedding, what was supposed to be Rachel's wedding from Jacob's point of view, Laban pulled the ultimate switcheroo. And the Jews have much, much, much to teach about this. And again, I find it helpful that they say that Rachel was in on it, and Rachel actually gave Leah some secret signs that she and Jacob knew that Laban might try to pull something like this. But Leah was so set up by this deal that Rachel couldn't break her sister's heart and embarrass her horribly in front of everyone by, having this wedding night experience and she being discovered by Jacob. So she gave her sister the secret signs, according to the way the Jews teach it. Nonetheless, we know for sure that night Jacob did go into Leah and they became man and wife. And the result of that led to a whole lot of things. But the thing I find absolutely neat that the Jews teach about this, and the reason I find it neat is it shows kind of the result of the sin, because what they teach is that when Jacob discovered that Leah was there, he immediately yelled at her. And what he yelled was, you are a deceiver like the son of a deceiver. And she looked at him and said, oh, does it sound similar, like you didn't do the same thing to your father and your brother? Does it sound familiar? And then Jacob, of course, runs over to Laban, and that's in the Bible, right? Like, what have you done to you? Deceived me. And he says, oh, in our country, we don't do it like you do. In other words, he's making reference again to Jacob's sin, which, has come home to roost, but not near as much as it would come home to roost later in the case of Joseph. But here we see that Leah was clearly involved in this deception, and she chose to go along with her father, and what happened, obviously, is one of the more remarkable stories in the Bible. But if you've got dysfunction in your family, this gives me great hope, because this is a whole lot of shenanigans. However, the result was the first four of the 12 tribes of Israel, which the fourth was Judah. And so Leah is clearly, directly in the line of Christ. And, what an amazing thing that here she clearly was involved in something that was, and she paid dearly for it as well. There's no doubt that everybody in this family paid for their deception, and everybody in this family, had a chance to repent, and everybody had a chance to seek God through what all was going on, because there was clearly all these different things, right? But if you think about it, it's just really redemptive to me to know that here was this sweet girl. She didn't want to be married to somebody that wasn't righteous. She ended up married to Jacob, and then she had a very difficult time for those years where she was having children, which, interestingly, when you think about the different mothers, she's the only mother who wasn't barren. She didn't fight the fight of not being able to have children. She fought the fight of, first of all, getting a husband, and then second of all, having that husband love her. Well, in the end, right, she had all these amazing children, and then she was the one who gets, buried with Jacob in the cave of Machpelah for all, generations to know that she was, in fact, Jacob's wife. And in the end, you can sense the love that was there as the way that God blessed all that and continues to bless it to this day. So thank you for listening. I can hardly wait to share Rachel's story tomorrow. It's something.
Do you ever wonder?